What's going on? Wednesday evening, back from the facility. I waited out traffic today. Nobody wanted to sit on 101 or 280 today. A couple accidents. I know on 280 for sure when I looked at Google Maps when I left. So I said, we're going to the Mountain View In-N-Out Burger. And I tethered my laptop to my phone, did a little bit of work from the Mountain View In-N-Out Burger. The one right there at El Camino, 85. That's a clutch spot sometimes today because I had to abort the plans that was going on 237. Way too much traffic on 237, merging onto 101 North. So I said, screw that. We're bailing the pocket here. We got to buy some more time. So you take 237 straight into the dead end of the freeway in Mountain View, right there where it hits El Camino. And In-N-Out Burger served me well, as In-N-Out Burger usually does. So tonight we have a 49ers Q&A. Love doing these, especially on, I don't want to say it was a slower news day, but compared to last week when we had the Christian McCaffrey news, that didn't happen until Thursday, right? So it's still 6 days ago, not 7 days ago. But compared to that whole flurry with Christian McCaffrey and then the Chiefs game coming up, National Tight Ends Day, and everything that surrounded that Super Bowl rematch, this seems mellow in comparison. But there are some talking points. There is some news, especially since Deebo Samuel did not practice for the 49ers today. So let's talk a little bit about that today. Deebo Samuel and Jauan Jennings, both out of 49ers practice with hamstring injuries. This is going to be what I watch especially closely tomorrow. So make sure you're following along the Athletic Twitter here for the updates. The second that I get out there tomorrow, I'm going to be looking for Deebo Samuel and Jauan Jennings, because if neither of those two guys is out there, or if just one of those two guys is out there, the 49ers will likely be shorthanded at the receiver position against the Rams. And, anybody else but these two guys, and yes, even Brandon Ayuk, but anybody outside of these two guys, I wouldn't make as big of a deal of against the Rams, just because of the stylistic impact that these two players have against the Rams in particular. The 49ers formula against the Rams has been one of toughness. And I could tell you this from the locker room. You could probably gather this from the multiple interviews and the multiple comments that 49ers have made in press conferences. They believe that they can break the Rams. They think that if they land the punch against the Rams don't get back up. There's a little bit of a front-running aspect to what the Rams have done. Of course, the Rams in the NFC Championship game beat the 49ers, but that's because the 49ers were never really able to land a firm punch. They had a chance when Jaquiski Tart dropped that interception. That would have been really interesting to see if the Rams could have gotten up from that. But something tells me that based on what is it? Is it up to it's 2019, 2 games, 2022 games, 2021. So it's a 7-game regular season winning streak against the Rams. Something tells me, based on all of those regular season games where the 49ers did successfully land a big punch against the Rams, that LA has a tough time getting up from it. LA loves when they deliver the first punch, but they struggle when that punch is administered against them. So who delivers the punches? Well, guys like Deebo Samuel and Jauan Jennings deliver the punches. I mean, you saw it with the yards after the catch in that touchdown play for Deebo Samuel. Jalen Ramsey couldn't tackle him out there in the open field. Jauan Jennings has had big games, big contributions when the 49ers have played the Rams. First drive of the Week 4 game that the 49ers won handily. 49ers were passing to set up the run. Guess who they go to early on third down? Jauan Jennings. He set the tone of that game versus the Rams, and he's kind of the guy that gets under the opponent's skin. I would think that Deebo Samuel and his style of play can get under the opposition's skin as well. But when you don't have these two players, and we don't know yet, we're going to see the status on Thursday, but if you don't have these two guys against the Rams, it's going to create stylistic issues for the 49ers. Now, can they overcome these issues? Yes, they now have Christian McCaffrey. I get it. They have Brandon Ayuk. I get it. But they don't have their bulldozers. Kyle Juszczyk is probably going to be out of this game too. Let's not forget that, with the broken finger. Talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. But without the bulldozers of Deebo Samuel and Jauan Jennings, your remaining bulldozer is George Kittle. And I think against a team like the Rams, the 49ers will fold if they punch him in the mouth. George Kittle would have to have a huge game. And then you'd be counting on Christian McCaffrey to be the guy that gashes that defense. George Kittle punches him in the stomach. Christian McCaffrey then goes through that softened middle of the defense with his quickness. He kind of darts through it because we don't know Christian McCaffrey as a violent Deebo Samuel or George Kittle style runner. But it's that mentality, that physicality that leaves imprints on opposing football teams and on games. And that's why it's so important to watch the status of Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings moving forward. Other news today, Jimmie Ward. This is what Jimmie Ward said about playing nickelback. I'm going to pull this one open on Twitter so we have the exact quote from Jimmie Ward. But Jimmie came back against the Kansas City Chiefs. He played with the cast on. And obviously, he's played mainly safety for the 49ers, especially in recent years. But the 49ers currently have two starting safeties who have been playing well to begin this season in Talanoa Hufanga and Tashawn Gibson Sr. So the 49ers slotted Jimmie Ward in at nickelback. Remember, Jimmie played some nickelback earlier in his career for the 49ers. Speaking of Jim Harbaugh, back in those Jim Harbaugh days. This was his quote in response to a question asking how long he'll be in his nickelback role. Let's put this one up on the screen. Jimmie Ward, on how long the 49ers plan for him to play nickel, his current role. Quote, I don't know. I'm just doing what my coaches are telling me to do. It's my last year under contract, and I'm just trying to be a great team player. And that was the extent of the answer. He obviously didn't say that he was thrilled about playing nickelback. And I think it's very logical to infer and fair to infer from that answer that Jimmie Ward is not thrilled about playing nickelback. However, I wouldn't make this out to be more dramatic than it really is. The 49ers have, again, two starting safeties who are both currently healthy, who have been playing well in Talanoa Hufanga and Tashawn Gibson. And that's Jimmie Ward's original position with the 49ers, at least over the past few years, right? They also have injury issues at cornerback. And those injury issues really started when Emmanuel Mosley went down. But that nickelback position, it's been unstable to say the least so far this season after the 49ers lost K'Wan Williams in free agency. But with Mosley going down and Deommodore Lenoir moving from the slot to the outside, and with the struggles of another youngster, Samuel Womack III at the cornerback position, it makes sense that the 49ers would have rather had the veteran Jimmie Ward at the nickelback spot. Now, is it Jimmie Ward's contract year, as he said in that quote? Yes, it's Jimmie Ward's contract year. And, you know, that's one of those things that's a tough break. He wants to put as much good safety tape out there as possible in his contract year. And the 49ers right now, they're not trying to screw him over. It's just he was out, and then their two safeties are playing well, including the one that was filling in for him. And now there's a bigger pressing need at the nickelback spot. And maybe Jimmie Ward can parlay this into some more takeaways. Everybody's always talked about his lack of interceptions, right? I know he got 2 against Matthew Stafford in week 10 last year, but that was it for the regular season. So people talk about that. Maybe being at nickel, Jimmie Ward can prey on the football a little bit more. Maybe he can up the takeaways, and maybe he can ultimately help his value in this coming free agency. Who knows? Also, he's one snap away from being back at safety, right? These are long seasons. These are marathons. Tashawn Gibson could get hurt. The 49ers just went through an injury scare with Talanoa Hufanga. As soon as something like that does happen, if it does, Jimmie Ward better be ready to slide over to safety. So I don't think this should be made into a bigger deal than it is. He obviously prefers to play safety, but he understands what he needs to do for the team right now. And he's not complaining about it. That was just the answer to a question. And at the end of the day, to me, it was a fairly innocuous answer to the question. Again, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I'm just doing what my coaches are telling me to do. It's my last year under contract, and I'm just trying to be a great team player. I don't know how else he's supposed to answer that, actually. And it's clear from the dynamics of the situation that nobody's getting screwed over here, that this is just how the team has to work, given the injury situation and given the available personnel at the time. Speaking of available personnel playing in positions that are not natural to them, Kyle Juszczyk will likely be out after he underwent finger surgery on Monday. And Juszczyk not being able to play against the Rams, this is an underrated, impactful absence for the 49ers. People are like, just the fullback doesn't get that many touches. Oh, it's not just the fullback. You can't just say that about the 49ers. The dirty work that Kyle Juszczyk does, both in the physical run game and in the cerebral part of the game. I mean, you saw the tape the other day. He was pointing out to Christian McCaffrey where to line up many times It's a crash course for Christian McCaffrey. You can't expect him to know the full playbook after just a few days. Well, Kyle Juszczyk was, I think, really, really diligent in making sure that I know, I don't want to say fellow Ivy Leaguer. I get it. Stanford's in the Pac-12, but his honorary fellow Ivy Leaguer was in the right position. Harvard was making sure that Stanford knew what was up out there on the football field. But on top of that, Juszczyk is such an exceptional player because of the angles that he understands in the field and can physically deliver with his size, strength, speed combination. He can deliver blocks on those angles, and then obviously he can also handle the football, catch the ball. He's one of the most versatile players in the NFL. Not having Kyle Juszczyk against the Rams is going to hurt the 49ers. I still remember week 2, 2019 season. 49ers called a pass, I believe, to Marquise Goodwin. It ended up being a touchdown. It was a long gainer. The Bengals weren't good yet at the time. I think it was Zach Taylor's first year as head coach. I mean, but they hadn't turned it around. Joe Burrow was obviously still in college at the time. But in that 2019 season, the 49ers relied so much on Kyle Juszczyk in pass protection in ways that you probably don't even realize. But the Bengals had Carlos Dunlap back then. Dunlap, who's now with the Chiefs. The 49ers saw him this past week. And they had Dunlap coming off one of the edges, and the 49ers were running a play fake where they counted on Kyle Juszczyk to cross the entire formation from an H-back alignment on the left side, and he had a crossover to make a block on Carlos Dunlap on the right. There are very few players in the NFL who are quick enough and strong enough to make that block, because the guys who are quick enough usually aren't strong enough, right, to cross the formation to block a defensive end in Carlos Dunlap. And the guys who are strong enough usually aren't quick enough to get there in time. So you usually don't have guys who physically can handle the block the way that Kyle Juszczyk did that time and many other times. And B, usually don't have players who are smart enough on top of that to be able to take the right angle to anticipate Dunlap's velocity coming off the line of scrimmage, to anticipate, where exactly that block needs to be thrown so that Jimmy Garoppolo, the quarterback, is shielded. I mean, these are all really, really important things to consider. And Kyle Juszczyk obviously has the football IQ to be able to deliver them. And C, there also aren't many players who are tough enough at Kyle Juszczyk's size to be able to absorb that kind of block against the bigger players. So while we sing Kyle Juszczyk's praises, we need to realize that the 49ers are going to miss this guy against the Rams on Sunday. He is a phenomenal player in terms of versatility that fits into this scheme. And he got hurt on a play where he broke his finger, I believe it was the pinky, and he was still running with that football, rumbling for a first down, bragging about his ball security later. So Ross Dwelley's going to fill in for Kyle Juszczyk. And the 49ers did this back in 2019 when Juszczyk missed 4 games. And the 4 games that he missed marked some lower level rushing efficiency for the 49ers. And given what I just told you, it shouldn't be any surprise that the 49ers lost rushing efficiency when Kyle Juszczyk was out, because again, he's got the perfect body type to deliver the blocks, the difficult blocks the 49ers need to from a geometric perspective at that fullback position. And he can also deliver the blocks in the pass game. It's not just run game stuff for Kyle Juszczyk. With Ross Dwelley, you've got a tight end who's longer, who's leaner, who has a little bit more trouble getting that kind of leverage. So it's, inevitably, I think, going to be a drop-off in terms of blocking angle quality from the 49ers. That being said, they do try to be interdependent with these positions, which leads to a lot of cross-training, right? The tight ends are going to do a lot of stuff with the fullback, because there's only one of them now without Josh Hokett in the building anymore. And the fullback is going to do a lot of stuff with the tight ends. For example, when the 49ers run combination blocks at practice, Kyle Juszczyk will come over there with the tight ends and tackles often and run some of that stuff with them. That's how similar these position groups are. So they do cross-train, and they do hope that Ross Dwelley can fill in for the time being. Good news for the 49ers is that they now have an all-pro running back to stock up that room in Christian McCaffrey, and he's really good at making defenders miss regardless of who the fullback blocking for him is. So do not underestimate this loss. It's one to keep an eye out for. It's I think significant, but I do think that the 49ers should have the personnel to at least partly overcome it. Now, don't forget that the Rams have the number 1 run defense per DVOA now in the NFL. They took that title from the 49ers because the 49ers have sucked over the past 2 weeks. So This is no Rams defense to scoff at. Aaron Donald's still up there in the middle. Greg Gaines is still up there in the middle. Biggest block, remember, in week 4 was the wham block. Charlie Werner against the 320-pounder, maybe even 330-pounder. Greg Gaines is a big guy. Charlie Werner went there and stonewalled him. You have to take this defensive line and apply the element of surprise to it if you're the 49ers. Because if these guys play you straight up, if Aaron Donald's playing you straight up, Greg Gaines straight up, they're probably going to beat you. I mean, the Rams do have some talent up front. So it's really important for the 49ers to keep them off balance up front. And I think that's going to start with passing to set up the run. And that's what Jimmy Garoppolo did to Juwan Jennings. And Deebo Samuel caught some big balls too in the game against the Rams in week 4. So these are really important injuries to keep an eye out for. All right, more news today. Jason Verrett, activated from PUP. When a player is activated from PUP, well, that's a significant roster move. And whenever the 49ers make a significant roster move, we open up the spreadsheet. Here it is, the spreadsheet. There it is. Perfect. All right, Jason Verrett used to be over here in this right column. That's the IR column. If you notice, I have already made the change. He's no longer over there. He's right here. So you could see Jason Verrett I put in as depth at cornerback because I don't know if he's going to start immediately. I don't think the 49ers know yet either. They're going to see how he does in practice. He was limited today. I think they're probably going to want to see him practice in full for a week before they plug him into a game, which makes the post-bye game against the Chargers the much more likely return for somebody like Jason Verrett because that game is also going to be on natural grass, not artificial turf, which is the turf at SoFi Stadium. So I have Verrett as a stash right now. They have him on the 53, but he's stashed there on the roster. Ultimately, though, and I could take Charvarius Ward off the injury report here. He's no longer in pink because he's back in practice as a full participant. We can also take Talanoa Hufanga off of it. And even though Jimmie Ward is currently hurt, we could take him off of it. And hey, why don't we move Jimmie Ward to nickel cornerback? Because that's where he's at right now. Wasn't sure where exactly we'd see him play, but now we do know where exactly we'll see him play. So Jimmy's going to be your top nickel cornerback for the 49ers. We can move Tarvarius Moore into this other slot with a nice little paste special. Oh, messed that one up. Go over here. Paste special. Values only. There we go. 49ers currently have a full 53-man roster. So across the secondary, you have Mooney Ward, Deommodore Lenoir, Jimmie Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, and Tashawn Gibson. Now, when Verrett is ready to come back, and maybe it is this weekend, who knows, then he would take Lenoir's spot right here. Where does Lenoir go? Maybe to nickel, or if you like Jimmie Ward better there, then Jimmie Ward stays at nickel. But again, nobody wishes this on the 49ers. Nobody wants this, but it is very possible that one of these guys starts missing time, Gibson or Hufanga. You know, usually his roster logjams work themselves out. And if that's the case, then you move Jimmie Ward back over to safety. And that's why you have depth at corner with Deommodore Lenoir. But that is what the depth chart looks right now. It's going to be important for Jason Verrett to reestablish himself. The 49ers had to activate him from PUP within 3 weeks of opening his practice window. So with Jason Verrett, the practice window opened 3 weeks ago. He worked back into practice, had, I don't want to say a setback, but the knee started barking at him a little bit. So they shut him down for that week in West Virginia on Thursday and Friday. But he was back at it this past week. And the deadline was today. It was on Wednesday. If the 49ers did not activate Jason Verrett today, they'd have to shut him down for the season. So what they say? Well, they said, hey, he may not be ready quite yet, because we still want to take it easy with him because we remember what happened in 2019 when we rushed this guy back. But we don't want to lose him for the whole season, even if he's not ready quite yet, because there's still a long way to go. So the 49ers decided to activate Verrett. That entailed grabbing a 53-man roster spot for him. They opened that roster spot by cutting Tevin Coleman and moving him to the practice squad. He re-signed to the practice squad today. And now the 49ers can stash Jason Verrett down here without using him for as long as they need to, as long as it's worth the roster spot before he's fully ready to go. But something tells me that will be sooner rather than later, maybe in that first week after the bye. So that is the quick look at that 49ers roster. All right. With the roster in mind, it is time for our 49ers Q&A. I warned you at the start of the show that a Q&A was coming. So I want to hear all of your good questions here, or I want to see all your good questions since I'm not going to hear you speak, and we'll answer them one by one, as many as I feel like. As long as we keep on growing in viewership right now, maybe I could stay online. So we'll see where this peaks out. Post your questions. Says Mike. Everybody listen to Mike. Good dude. Jake. Hey, David. The Niners don't have to leave the West Coast for the rest of the season. How big of a deal is this? They don't have any early bloody clock starts anymore. That's nice. I think they only had. Have they had any? But I don't consider Atlanta to be an early body clock start because they're already out there in West Virginia. It's the flight miles that are nice because nobody wants to be in that pressurized cabin for longer than they have to be, especially if they're dealing with a lot of injuries. A lot of recovery science has to deal with that. So, I mean, it is significant, and I guess the margins in this league are narrow. So, yeah, and anything of even small significance, you try to get that small edge, right? And you'll take that edge because the edges in this league are indeed sometimes minuscule. So I do think that it is a significant deal. Is it massive? No, but everything is significant in this league. David Bender, does a win against the Rams, if the 49ers win, make them feel better after the beatdown they got from Kansas City? Of course, any win is going to make you feel better about a loss. Listen, if the 49ers win this game, they're going to be 4-4. They're going to be right there in the NFC West race at the top of the division. I don't know exactly where they'd be with Seattle. I don't know what Seattle's going to do this weekend, but they'd be 4-4, 500 ball, 9 games left to play, and they'd be entering a bye week with a chance to heal up. And they'd be 3-0 against their division, which would give them an excellent chance to win the NFC West. I'll go as far as this. I think the 49ers would be significant betting favorites to win the NFC West if they beat the Rams this weekend. And that's all you try to do when you go out there and take the field at the start of every season. You try to win your division. That's the best way, the easiest path into the postseason tournament. So if the goal to begin every season is to win your division and you're leaving week 8, entering the bye week as the betting favorite to win your division halfway through the season, you've done something right. Now, the 49ers have obviously done plenty wrong so far. Got some tough losses under their belt. But this is the NFL where it's a marathon and it's not a sprint. They started last season 3-5. I'll tell you what, 4-4 is better than 3-5. Even if they lose, it's nowhere near over. They're just back at the record that they were at last year after 8 games, and that would be 3-5. But a win definitely would make them feel a lot better. Sign Emmanuel Sanders. Didn't he retire? I think Frank's just joking around. Frank, though, does have a more serious question here. What's the physical and mental vibe of the team, David, among the players? Spencer Burford went out of his way, and he's a rookie, to tell me after the game on Sunday that a lot of guys in the locker room took that loss against Kansas City personally. So we're just going to have to take Spencer Burford's word for it. I mean, at the end of the day, fans are going to be very, very emotional about wins, losses. It's up to the players to actually be a little bit more even-keeled and to rein in that emotion and to just make fixes, to be professionals on a week-to-week basis. And I think that the 49ers currently are being professionals about this. They know that they made some mistakes. And, I saw a graphic the other day, pop this one up on the screen. I actually saw it today. I think Steph Sanchez actually made this graphic, and, shout out, just does a great job. Steph Sanchez does. Let's pop this open on the screen. This is a drop rate. I'm just trying to format this so we can, there it is. Yeah, so this is from Steph Sanchez on Twitter. This is NFL drop rate tabulated into a spreadsheet this year. So receivers dropping passes. And let's get the comment off of there. My face could still be in the corner. Maybe I need to get 49ers Q&A off of there too. Probably blocking a few things, right? There we go. Now you guys can see the full glory of this. So obviously red is bad. Green is a lot better. The 49ers are ranked 4th from the bottom, or, it's the top of the spreadsheet here, but it's still on the side of it that you don't want to be on. They have 12 drops this year and 225 pass attempts. And that's a drop rate of over 5%, 5.33% for the 49ers. I think everybody's heard of the issues that Green Bay has had with drop rate, 5.92%. Aaron Rodgers has been very vocal about that. The Dolphins have had some issues with Mike McDaniel, and the Titans over there with Ryan Tannehill have had bad drop issues. They, though, don't have nearly as many pass attempts here. So the percentage is a little bit higher. Good chance that we'll get a little bit better for the Tennessee Titans. But you look at the 49ers, 225 attempts, 12 drops. That's a lot. Deebo Samuel has dropped some passes for the 49ers. Brandon Ayuk has dropped some passes. Some of the less notable guys have dropped passes. You go back to the game against Atlanta. We talked about Werner. We talked about Ray McLeod. Simply put, from an execution perspective, not good enough from the 49ers. We talk a lot about, oh, they have a lot of skill position weapons. They should be in better rhythm offensively, all this and all that. Well, they're dropping passes at this rate. That's got to be disappointing for anybody observing this in an unbiased manner, right? These guys who are highly prized skill position weapons need to catch the football. It is imperative that the 49ers catch the football, hold on to it. So anyway, mistakes like that are the ones that can detonate drives, that could swing momentum against you, that the 49ers really need to eliminate if they're going to be serious about finding offensive rhythm. And one thing about mistakes like that is that they tend to happen more often when players are not in their full comfort zone. And Kyle Shanahan talked about it a bit today. The truth of the matter is, and this is not an excuse, and everybody always starts yelling, excuse, but he said it today, and it's true. The 49ers, a week and a half into the regular season, in week 2, really, so a game and a half in, had to completely pivot their plans from a quarterback, Trey Lance, who they had planned the whole offense around for the entire offseason, back to Jimmy Garoppolo. So you're working on one thing, and football's organized chaos where you're trying to be as precise as possible with something. You're working on one thing all offseason. All of a sudden, Trey Lance goes down week 2 against Seattle, and you have to wheel around, pivot back to Jimmy Garoppolo. It's going to take a little while to find that cohesiveness, find that rhythm. It's going to take even longer if a lot of guys are hurt and you can't fully practice every single week. And it might even take longer if you lose your offensive coordinator and Mike McDaniel, who's now with the Miami Dolphins, trying to imprint his new system over there. So when rhythm, let's put it this way. When personnel are put into positions and asked to do things that maybe aren't completely natural for them or a little bit different than they've been practicing for months throughout the offseason, they're more likely to commit errors. And errors are penalties, there are drops. And look at the 49ers. They are at the top of the league in a bad way. So we could say at the bottom of the league in both penalties and drops. So the theory is, and I think it's a sound theory, that the longer this season goes, the more polished the 49ers should become because they'll be more used to their new reality. And the 49ers better hope that a lot of that improvement comes this week against the Rams. They got a lot of the kinks out of their operation with that blowout loss against the Chiefs. All right, let's go to some more questions. All this substituting because of injury seems to confuse the defense and seems to me, it makes perfect sense. Okay, so this is kind of an extension of what I was saying. Yeah, I mean, the defense obviously also has continuity issues that it must tend to. It's the same on offense and defense. Communication, cohesion's all the same thing. Ton of injuries on defense. At one point, they were down 7 starters, right? So it does make sense that their performance would be adversely impacted by the different pairings and mixings and matchings of players that they have there. All right. Speakeasy says, O-line was a big concern before the season. The 49ers have seen mixed results. How are the players gelling in the locker room and on the field? Offensive line is fascinating to me because I think that the interior, where I was saying that's where the biggest worry is entering the season, I think these guys have been relatively solid. Aaron Banks especially. Why don't we take a moment to shout out to Aaron Banks? I mean, he hasn't given up a sack yet this season, hasn't given up a pressure in a couple weeks. Everybody was just crapping on Aaron Banks entering this season, and this guy has shown up to play, has reworked his body. He's an upper half left guard right away, playing better than Laken Tomlinson, who's getting paid a whole heck of a lot more money for the New York Jets, That's been a 2 thumbs up move for the 49ers. Then you move to center. Jake Brendel, it's a little bit more of a mixed bag. His pass protection has actually been decent. Everybody's going to say, "Oh, David, well, what about the play where Brandon Ayuk caught the bomb and Brendel got run over and he got called for holding and that play was nullified?" And to that I say, yeah, everybody's going to have a bad rep, and we knew that Jake Brendel's a little bit light for your typical interior offensive lineman. He's probably going to get steamrolled sometimes. But if you look at the pass block win rate for centers over on ESPN, it's actually a good stat to look up here. Let's see if Jake Brendel's still on there. He was in the top 10. In fact, I think he was number 4 not too long ago. When I watch the game tape of Jake Brendel, he doesn't lose all that often in pass protection, and that really was the worry for Brendel, because coming out of UCLA several years ago, he was only like 286 pounds, and as you know, that's lighter than the average NFL offensive lineman. The book on him was, oh, this guy can move, but this guy, he might have trouble anchoring in pass protection. So my worry for him was the pass protection, but I think he's actually been mostly decent there. Top 10 centers, pass block, win rate. He's no longer on there. So he must be just out of it. He was this week, must have pushed Jake Brendel right out of the pass block win rate top 10. David Andrews at the top. Corey Linsley, number 2. Remember Corey Linsley, he's consistently been near the top of that list over the past few years. Former Packers center, now with San Diego, LA. I get it. The Chargers, they're going to be coming on November 13th. Creed Humphrey, number 4. Creed Humphrey, boy, that's an example of what investing in your offensive line properly will do, right? The Kansas City Chiefs, they stonewalled that 49ers pass rush this past week, and they blocked well in the run. Almost, if you follow the 49ers, all it really makes you wonder, what if the 49ers had used some of that draft capital, some more of it on the offensive line, because the Chiefs certainly did, and they're benefiting right now. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Jake Brendel, I think, has been better than expected pass blocking. Where he's come a little bit short, in my opinion, is run blocking, and not just what we see on tape. The center in this Kyle Shanahan offense has big time responsibilities as far as pointing out safety rotations, just calling out what the protections are going to be at the line of scrimmage. The center, on top of everything that he has to do physically, which is just like what I was talking about Kyle Juszczyk earlier, he has to make some difficult blocks, reach the second level very fast. He's expected to do more from an athletic standpoint than most offensive linemen in the league in the Shanahan system. On top of that, the center has to be on top of his game cerebrally. And the 49ers are ranked, I think, number 24, number 25 DVOA in running the football so far this year. It could be because they lost Elijah Mitchell, right? It could be because the running back situation isn't great. They did trade a lot for Christian McCaffrey, so that probably is a component of it. But I also think that losing Alex Mack could not have possibly helped the 49ers run offense. The 49ers, and Johnny Dell, who does the Film Academy, had a great stat on this. He said since 2019, the 49ers are 11-2 when Weston Richburg played, and only 23-23 without Weston Richburg. The center is a A-list premium position in this Shanahan offense. And Shanahan coached Alex Mack in Cleveland and Atlanta, and then he brought him back to San Francisco. And Shanahan obviously signed Weston Richburg to big money before he tore his patellar tendon and then subsequently had to retire. This year, maybe the 49ers were a little bit caught off guard by the Mack retirement, maybe not, but they decided to go with Brendel. And maybe Brendel's just going to take some time to learn how to be that engine, that pivot point of the run game. But as of right now, the 49ers run game is ranked in the 20s, and that's not going to be good enough for a Shanahan system. I don't know how much of that to blame on Brendel. And I'm sitting here saying that I actually think he's been above average, better than expected in pass protection. But when McCaffrey does come aboard with the full playbook here on Sunday, it will be imperative for the 49ers to begin making steps up in run efficiency. They cannot stay slogged down in the 20s there. And then finally, right guard, Spencer Burford. Boy, I think he's been solid, and I think he's been improving, and I love his attitude. So the O-line on the interior, to me, has been better than I thought it was going to be. The exterior is a bigger question mark to me because there have been injuries involved. I don't think Trent Williams was 100% this past weekend, even though he said he was. But, I mean, you don't see him give up plays like the safety to Frank Clark all too often. And then on the right side, Mike McGlinchey. I mean, he was the worst 49ers offensive lineman in this game against the Chiefs. Gave up 4 pressures. They moved Chris Jones to the outside. The defensive end was rushing against a right tackle. And 2 of the sacks happened when McGlinchey just got his lunch taken away by Chris Jones, backed into Jimmy Garoppolo. I thought McGlinchey actually had good plays on tape in this game. But the problem with the Shanahan system is that you get behind schedule, stuff goes to crap really quickly. And if you get behind schedule because Mike McGlinchey gave up a sack, Mike McGlinchey's not going to look really good on Twitter when everybody's circulating the all 22 of him getting backed up into the quarterback by Chris Jones. So to me, the tackle positions have been bigger question marks so far than the interior line, which is a funny reversal of what we expected. The man, 89-59. What do you think of Drake Jackson so far this season? I really like Drake Jackson. I think he still needs to develop some man strength to be able to set the edge against the run. But in a pure pass situation, he's got bend. And you know what he also has? He showcases effort. The sack he had against Atlanta was a pure effort sack. He'd never get 2 pressures. So I'm just saying this in jest. But I said that he delivered, that he deserved 2 pressures on that play. Because first he crashed in, pressured Mariota, who was able to spin away and start running. And then from that point, Drake Jackson wheeled around 180 degrees and sprinted down Mariota toward the sideline, got him before he hit the line of scrimmage, so it was a sack. To me, that was 2 separate pressures on one play, and it showed that Drake Jackson's got some motor and has some heart. Frank Saldivar, Trent was compromised, yes. And, you know, Joe Staley was compromised in his first game back from injury in 2019, gave up some pressure. So we shouldn't, be all too harsh on Trent Williams here. Probably better than any other option that the 49ers had at that left tackle position against Frank Clark and company, right? He tried to give it a go. That first game back, you're trying to knock off that rust. He should be much better against the Rams, and the 49ers are going to need him to be better against the Rams. Still no practice for Dre Greenlaw. It's going to be another big one to keep an eye out for here moving forward. That safety was smart by Clark. He took a super wide angle and basically ran 5 yards around Trent to get to Garoppolo. He knew leaving his gap compromised wasn't an issue because Garoppolo wouldn't run. Yeah, I mean, Garoppolo's not going to run. Also, Frank Clark knew the down and distance, right? That was smart. He knew that this was 3rd and long, and the 49ers were desperate, and that Garoppolo taking off and salvaging 5 yards with a run wasn't going to benefit the 49ers in any way. It would just give them room to punt, and then the Chiefs can just turn around and score again. Garoppolo was right to go for broke on the play. They're down 12 at the time, so you're still 2 touchdowns down. So you have to wait to see if something develops downfield. You just have to hope that Frank Clark doesn't run around Trent Williams the way that he did. Frank Clark did run around Trent Williams, and he sacked Jimmy Garoppolo in the end zone for a safety. But throwing it away doesn't improve the 49ers' chances of winning in that game either. So it was tough because Frank Clark knew that the 49ers were desperate, and that's where coverage can fuel the rush, right? If you cover well, as the Chiefs did on that play, then you give your pass rushers a chance to hit home, even with that extra wide running angle. Yeah, and exactly here. He knew that Jimmy wasn't going to throw the ball away, and there was no reason for Garoppolo to throw the ball away. I mean, it hurts his stats if he takes the safety. But again, they're down 12. That's a play that he wants to try to make because you're in desperation mode at the time with the 49ers. You're not in a good situation in that point if you're the 49ers. So, it's Frank Clark gets the sack. He gets the safety. Tip your cap. Move on. Move forward. No, it's going to be McGlinchey at right tackle. But Daniel Brunskill, I talked to him today. He's been working at every single position in practice. That's guard, center, and tackle. I don't think that Garoppolo throws the ball away enough, that's for sure. But I also know that on that safety play, that wasn't a situation where he should have thrown it away. I mean, there's times to throw it away. There's times when not to throw it away. That safety play, nope. I mean, you got to try to make something happen there, and the Chiefs just covered too well on that play. Yeah, they should have run a screen to the running back. They could have run a McCaffrey screen on that 3rd down. Maybe McCaffrey takes it to the house. And I think we're going to see more of those from the 49ers moving forward. Here's a good question. Why is special teams still a problem? The teams seem to overhaul the unit, but it still isn't performing well. Well, this is a really good question because the special teams They've been really good in punting. Punt coverage has been good. They jumped on one the other day, obviously. The punt returns have also ranked well, but they've been bottom of the barrel bad on kickoffs and kick returns. And I don't know. I mean, McLeod would be better off just staying in the end zone on some of these. I think I have this yesterday on Twitter as well. Let's put this up there. Go to my media from some previous charts. I hope it's there. Maybe not. Maybe I retweeted it. I don't see it, but it was a charting of all kicks that could have been touchbacks but were returned, what the average field position was, and the 49ers was like the 14.6 yard line. And you get the touchback at the 25, right? You get it way up past that. That's 11 yards the 49ers have given up just because they've been too prideful to take a knee for the touchback and they try to run it out, and the run out hasn't gone well. And that has damaging effects starting that close to your goal line. Every yard is worth points. That's where expected points and that measurement comes from. And field position is an important thing. And the 49ers special teams on the kick returns has not done a good job giving it to them. They've also given up a couple big on kick coverage. It's been damaging too. You saw the Chiefs rip one off there, and then Juwan Jennings with the not smart penalty pushing the returner out of bounds. I think that was Pacheco returning, right? I think it was Isaiah Pacheco just shoves him out of bounds a little bit too late, and not good. Kyle Shanahan was very, very frustrated about that. Did it kill Johnny Dell to see? Yeah, those are, I mean, they're bad. They're bad returns. Everybody check out Johnny Dell's channel. I've really enjoyed. I discovered that this year. I've really enjoyed watching those breakdowns. 49ers do need a better offensive line. I think they need better tackle play, that's for sure, than they got this week. Will Deebo play against the Rams? I don't know. That's how I opened the show. We will find out tomorrow. I'm going to wrap this one up here. Let me go through some of the stuff I talked about early. Thanks, everybody, for your questions. I'm done with the question component today. Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings. They've been central to the 49ers formula against the Rams. They didn't practice on Wednesday due to hamstring issues. We're going to find out on Thursday if they're back at practice. If they're not, this is going to be a much bigger story because Deebo has run over the Rams. Juwan's run over the Rams. The Rams, the 49ers believe, are a team, they're front runners. The 49ers haven't been shy about this. They think the Rams are front runners. And they think that if they could punch them in the mouth early, the Rams have trouble getting up. Well, Deebo and Juwan Jennings are the guys that do a lot of that punching in the mouth. But you don't have them. You don't have them. You got to rely on Christian McCaffrey. Probably rely on George Kittle to give you some of that physicality that can really make the Rams back down. So this is going to be big injury stuff to watch tomorrow. Jimmie Ward, is he upset playing nickelback? You know, I don't think he's thrilled to be playing nickelback, but it is the only position that currently makes sense. They have Deshaun Gibson and Hufanga at safety. Jimmie Ward is the best option at nickel. He's going to have to cover Cooper Kupp a lot of the times in this game. Get ready because it's going to be a big, big challenge for Jimmie Ward. That coverage has got to hold up for the 49ers. Let that rush take advantage of a beleaguered LA offensive line. No more Joe Noteboom at left tackle. They will be getting their center, Brian Allen, back, so they will no longer be on a third-string center like they were against the 49ers in Week 4. Might get tougher for the 49ers up front because of that, but all still worth keeping an eye out for. Ross Dwelley in for Kyle Juszczyk at fullback. Probably not ideal for the 49ers. But Dwelley's going to have to do better than he did in that role in 2019. And he's bigger and stronger, has more experience now. So I think it's going to happen. Jason Verrett, where is he going to fill in? We'll see. Maybe not this week. Maybe coming in after the bye. All right, everybody, thank you for your time. It was fun. It's been a good Wednesday evening. Everybody liked the video, sub to the channel, sub to The Athletic. My Twitter is right here. Everybody take care. I enjoyed it. Hope you did too. We'll talk to you very soon. Bye now.